Imagine waking up to find your $1 million California paradise turned into financial quicksand, where even desperate sellers can't find buyers at half price. This isn't some distant hypothetical scenario brewing in economic think tanks. It's happening right now in specific neighborhoods across the Golden State, and the warning signs are flashing red for anyone paying attention. Today, we're taking an unflinching look at 10 California cities where the housing market isn't just cooling down, it's entering full cardiac arrest in 2025. We're going beyond the sanitized headlines about soft landings and gentle market corrections. Instead, we're diving deep into communities where the American dream has morphed into a financial nightmare. Picture this: fire-prone zones where insurance companies are fleeing faster than residents during evacuation orders, tech boom towns built on stock options that evaporated overnight, and investor playgrounds where the party ended but nobody told the mortgage holders. Our top city faces a perfect storm so devastating that some properties could realistically lose 60 to 80% of their value. That's not market volatility, that's financial obliteration. Think your neighborhood is immune? Drop your city in the comments and let's see what the data reveals. If you're exhausted by watching housing costs spiral beyond sanity while wages stay frozen, smash that like button and subscribe because the next warning might save your financial future. Let's dive into this mess. Starting our journey at number 10, we land in Stockton, a city that epitomizes the Central Valley's boom and bust reality. Picture yourself crawling through Bay Area traffic for 2 solid hours, watching those iconic rolling green hills gradually flatten into an endless expanse of brown. The commute alone tells the story of Stockton's fundamental problem. This city sold itself as the solution for Bay Area workers priced out of coastal markets. The pitch was seductive. Trade that soul-crushing rent for an actual house with a yard, even if it means spending half your waking hours on Interstate 5. For a brief moment, the math seemed to work, but mathematics has a cruel way of eventually asserting itself. The median home price here hovers around $500,000, which once felt like winning the lottery compared to San Francisco's astronomical costs. But that price tag assumes you can actually afford to live somewhere while working somewhere else entirely. Recent data from the California Association of Realtors shows Central Valley sales slowing dramatically as reality sets in. Those price reduction signs aren't occasional anymore, they're becoming standard neighborhood fixtures. Inventory is creeping upward as sellers who bought at peak prices start to sweat. The fundamental issue is simple but brutal. Stockton's local economy bears no resemblance to the Bay Area's economic engine that supposedly justifies these home prices. When tech companies started demanding employees return to physical offices 3 days per week, that 4-hour daily commute transformed from an inconvenience into financial suicide. Calculate the gas costs, vehicle wear, and lost time, and suddenly that affordable house feels like an expensive prison. The salary that justified the mortgage payment requires being present in an office 100 miles away. This isn't meant to disparage Stockton residents who've built a community worth defending, but the economic foundation supporting current housing prices resembles a house of cards in a windstorm. When a city's real estate market depends entirely on overflow demand from a distant economy, it becomes the first casualty when that distant economy hiccups. Right now, the Bay Area is doing more than hiccuping. Moving to number 9, Riverside represents the Inland Empire's collision with economic reality. After leaving Stockton, you drive south through more flat, sun-baked landscape, interrupted mainly by massive distribution centers and truck stops. This region became America's logistics capital, moving goods from Pacific ports to the entire continent. During the pandemic remote work boom, Riverside offered Angeles area residents something previously unimaginable: an actual yard they could afford. The explosion in demand was spectacular, driving median home prices to around $650,000, according to recent Zillow data. Here's where the math gets ugly. The warehouses and distribution centers that dominate this regional economy don't generate $600,000 salaries. Not even close. The housing market became completely divorced from local earning capacity, sustained entirely by outside money from remote workers and LA commuters. Now that outside money is evaporating, companies are tightening budgets and demanding employees return to coastal offices. Meanwhile, Redfin's latest market reports show inventory swelling as more homes hit the market, with price reductions becoming standard practice rather than occasional necessity. The people who actually live and work in Riverside can no longer afford to buy homes in their own community. Meanwhile, the outsiders who drove up prices are retreating toward the coast or leaving California entirely. This creates a classic affordability crisis where local wages can't support local housing costs. The Inland Empire's residents are hardworking people who deserve stable communities. But when housing becomes a speculative asset disconnected from local wages, the foundation turns to quicksand. It's a textbook example of what happens when real estate prices lose all connection to the economic reality of the people who actually live somewhere. Number 8 takes us to Sacramento, California's capital city, and theoretically one of its more stable markets. Driving north from Southern California's warehouse sprawl, you eventually see the distinctive gold dome rising from the flat valley floor. This represents the seat of power for the world's 5th largest economy. Sacramento marketed itself as the smart choice for Bay Area families seeking an escape from coastal insanity. The pitch was compelling: stable government jobs, reasonable commute to tech centers, and housing prices that wouldn't require selling organs. For a while, the strategy worked brilliantly, but Sacramento's 2 main pillars of support are simultaneously crumbling. First, the state government faces a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit, as reported by California's Legislative Analyst's Office. That means hiring freezes, potential layoffs, and a general chilling effect on the consumer confidence that drives housing demand. The median home price shot past $600,000, a figure that feels dangerously high when the region's primary employer is tightening its belt. According to the Sacramento Association of Realtors, inventory is climbing while more sellers reduce asking prices each week. Second, the influx of remote tech workers is reversing as Bay Area companies demand return-to-office compliance. That 3-hour round-trip commute from Sacramento to Silicon Valley transforms from inconvenient to impossible when required multiple days per week. Sacramento remains a great place to live with passionate local advocates, but the financial logic that drove real estate to dizzying heights is now working in reverse. The affordable escape hatch has slammed shut, leaving people wondering if they're trapped inside a market that no longer makes sense. If you were a state worker facing potential budget cuts, would you be house hunting right now or quietly renewing your lease? The answer reveals everything about Sacramento's current trajectory. Number 7 brings us to San Diego, the city that markets itself as paradise with a price tag to match. After fleeing Sacramento's political tensions, you drive south for what feels like forever down California's spine. Eventually, that dry inland heat gives way to cool ocean breezes and impossibly blue Pacific views. San Diego represents the California dream in its purest form. Perfect weather, stunning beaches, and a laid-back lifestyle that makes East Coast winters seem like cruel punishment. But in 2025, that postcard comes with a price tag that would make Silicon Valley billionaires pause. The median price for a single-family home is flirting with $1 million, according to the Greater San Diego Association of Realtors. Think about that number for a moment. $1 million for a standard 3-bedroom house, likely miles from the actual ocean. This has made San Diego one of America's least affordable cities. Multiple 2025 analyses by real estate data firms consistently show that households need incomes exceeding $200,000 just to comfortably afford average home prices here. The problem is San Diego's economy, built on military installations, tourism, and biotech research, doesn't generate enough $200,000 jobs to sustain these valuations. The market has been running on fumes, powered by historically low interest rates and the belief that prices here only move upward. But Redfin's latest data tells a different story. More listings include price cuts, and homes are sitting on the market longer than sellers expect. The high-end segment is getting hit first, but anxiety is trickling down through all price ranges. Sellers are discovering that perfect weather doesn't pay property taxes, and the sunshine premium has reached its breaking point. San Diego is undeniably beautiful, but beauty doesn't guarantee financial viability. Would you sacrifice comfortable retirement just to live somewhere with no seasons? That's the trade-off facing many residents as reality intrudes on the paradise marketing. Number 6 takes us to Los Angeles, the sprawling megalopolis that sells dreams to the world while pricing out the dreamers. The drive north from San Diego is short, but the vibe shift is seismic. Relaxed beach town energy dissolves into chaotic urban intensity that glitters with promise while reeking of desperation. Los Angeles remains the global entertainment capital, but in 2025, the only thing it seems to be producing efficiently is for sale signs. The median single-family home price still clings to the $1 million mark according to the California Association of Realtors, but that number conceals a terrifying truth. The people who make this city function, teachers, nurses, electricians, firefighters, have been priced out for years. Now, even upper-middle-class professionals are throwing in the towel. U.S. Census Bureau migration data consistently shows net outflow from Los Angeles County, a trend accelerating in 2025. People are cashing out their million-dollar equity and buying mansions in Texas or Tennessee. The result is neighborhoods that were once vibrant communities becoming hollow shells filled with investment properties or vacant homes. The sense of community is eroding, replaced by transactional relationships between strangers. This isn't just market correction, it feels like a city losing its soul. The sheer scale of Los Angeles means it won't collapse overnight like smaller markets might. But the foundation is cracking in ways that should terrify anyone paying attention. When the middle class abandons a city, who pays the taxes that fund basic services? Who runs the small businesses that create community character? The glitz and glamour of Hollywood can't hide the mathematical reality that average people can no longer afford to live where they work. Number 5 brings us to Dublin, a Bay Area suburb that represents the pinnacle of tech wealth and the volatility that comes with it. Escaping LA's endless gridlock, you drive north for 6 hours toward the epicenter of the technology universe. But you're not heading to San Francisco or Palo Alto. Instead, you're visiting a newer, shinier, somehow more unsettling version of the California dream. Dublin looks perfect from the outside. Massive single-family homes sit on impossibly green lawns along streets clean enough to perform surgery on. Everything appears flawless, but underneath this suburban veneer lurks a financial time bomb. The median home price here reaches $1.5 million, according to Compass Real Estate's market analysis. These homes weren't purchased with traditional salaries. They were bought with stock options, IPO windfalls, and the kind of paper wealth that can evaporate during a single bad earnings quarter. The tech industry's year of efficiency has evolved into a multi-year hangover of rolling layoffs and hiring freezes. Those restricted stock units that were supposed to cover property taxes are now worth half their previous value, assuming the buyer still has their job at all. Redfin data shows the consequences clearly. Inventory is surging in Dublin, and neighboring communities as tech workers who stretched to buy are now forced to sell. Bidding wars have disappeared, replaced by price cuts as the new normal. This isn't criticism of people who bought here based on reasonable expectations about their careers. It's a terrifying glimpse into what happens when an entire housing market becomes tethered to stock market volatility. Your home's value is literally tied to NASDAQ performance. When your neighbor gets laid off and must sell, your property value takes a hit. When an entire company division gets eliminated, a whole block of for sale signs appears overnight. This is what happens when housing markets are built on phantom wealth rather than stable local economies. Number 4 takes us to Palm Springs, where the desert paradise transformed into a cautionary tale about speculation. Leaving the manicured suburbs behind, you drive east then south for hours, watching the last traces of green surrender to stark, beautiful, brutal desert landscape. Palm Springs represents mid-century modern architecture at its finest. Every house looks like a museum piece with sparkling pools and mountain backdrops. During the pandemic, investors discovered this architectural treasure trove and transformed entire neighborhoods into unregulated hotels through short-term rental platforms. The business model seemed foolproof. Buy beautiful houses, rent them to wealthy tourists seeking desert escapes, and watch cash flow cover mortgages on $900,000 properties. But according to AirDNA, which tracks short-term rental markets, booking rates in desert communities have shown significant downturns in 2025. The tourist flood has slowed to a trickle, and cash flow that was supposed to service massive mortgages has evaporated. Suddenly, all those investors are trying to sell simultaneously. Zillow data shows dramatic inventory spikes with homes sitting for months instead of days. This isn't traditional market correction, it's a business model collapsing. Palm Springs real estate isn't tied to local employment or regional economic health. It depends entirely on discretionary spending by wealthy people from Los Angeles and San Francisco. As the economy tightens, desert weekend homes become the first luxury to eliminate. This demonstrates the risk of cities that stop serving residents and start serving tourists and speculators. When housing becomes divorced from local needs, its foundation turns to glass, vulnerable to any shift in external demand patterns. Number 3 brings us to Truckee, a charming mountain town sitting in one of America's highest-risk wildfire zones. Leaving the scorching desert, you climb thousands of feet into crisp Sierra Nevada air. The landscape transforms into breathtaking granite peaks, towering pines, and glimpses of Lake Tahoe's deep blue water. Truckee feels like the ultimate escape with world-class skiing and hiking, surrounded by multi-million-dollar cabins nestled among towering trees. But those beautiful trees are now viewed as liabilities, and the financial system that made these homes valuable is collapsing. Major insurance carriers like State Farm and Allstate have made headlines by pulling back from California policies, as confirmed by the state's Department of Insurance. For towns like Truckee, this creates an economic earthquake that threatens the entire real estate market. Imagine owning a $1.5 million home when your insurance company drops coverage. You can't find replacement coverage except through California's FAIR Plan, the state's insurer of last resort, which costs 5 times as much for a fraction of the protection. Now, try selling that home. Potential buyers can't get mortgages because lenders won't finance properties that can't be properly insured. Your $1 million asset becomes effectively worthless to anyone needing financing. Your only potential buyers are cash speculators willing to risk total financial annihilation from a single ember. This isn't a housing dip. It's a liquidity crisis where the financial system itself declares certain properties uninvestable. Local real estate agents report deals falling apart at closing due to insurance contingencies, creating slow-motion catastrophe hidden beneath beautiful alpine scenery. Number 2 takes us to San Francisco, the city that technology built and is now systematically breaking. Descending from the mountains, you drive west toward the coast, crossing bridges shrouded in signature fog. The emerging skyline remains iconic, symbolizing innovation, wealth, and counterculture that define the 21st century. But the pandemic didn't just empty San Francisco offices, it hollowed out the entire economic ecosystem that supported insane real estate prices. Downtown commercial vacancy rates have reached historic crisis levels as reported by publications like the San Francisco Chronicle. This isn't merely an office problem, it's a housing catastrophe developing in real time. The property tax base funding city services is eroding. Small businesses that served millions of daily commuters have shuttered. High-paying jobs that justified $2 million fixer-upper prices are now remote, and employees have fled to Austin, Miami, or Lisbon. According to Compass real estate data, San Francisco has experienced some of the nation's most significant sustained home price declines since the market peak. This isn't a soft landing, it's controlled demolition of an entire urban economy. You can walk through previously impossible, expensive neighborhoods like No Valley or the Marina and see for sale signs sitting for months. Sellers are accepting offers far below asking prices, something unthinkable just years ago. This represents the poster child for what happens when a city's economy becomes entirely dependent on a single industry that fundamentally changes how it operates. The city's legendary charm persists, but it's overshadowed by decay in the sense that the golden era has definitively ended. The question facing San Francisco is whether this represents necessary reset or the beginning of irreversible decline. Finally, number 1 brings us to South Lake Tahoe, where every risk from our journey converges into a single terrifying scenario. Leaving San Francisco, you drive east for hours back into the Sierra Nevada. Rounding a corner, you see the impossibly blue water that represents the pinnacle of California's natural beauty and its most dangerous real estate market. The wildfire threat isn't theoretical here. The Caldor fire in 2021 forced the entire city to evacuate, proving that paradise can become hell with little warning. The insurance crisis we saw in Truckee represents an existential threat here, making homes unmortgageable. Like Palm Springs, the market is saturated with vacation rentals owned by investors entirely dependent on tourism. This is where we explain that 60 to 80% price drop mentioned in our title. This isn't a forecast for every property, but a plausible worst-case scenario for the most vulnerable homes. Picture an investor-owned house in a high-risk fire zone where insurance gets canceled and tourism revenue dries up. The owner is now losing money monthly on a highly flammable, uninsured asset they desperately need to sell. But no one requiring financing can purchase it. The only potential buyer is a cash speculator willing to gamble on total loss. That speculator won't offer market value, they might offer $200,000 for land value. Accepting the house could vanish tomorrow. That represents an 80% drop, not from traditional market forces, but from complete repricing of risk. It transforms dream homes into high-stakes gambling chips where the house always wins, except the house might literally burn down. What is a home truly worth if it can't be insured, can't be financed, and could disappear in smoke? That's the question facing Paradise, and the answer is reshaping California's entire real estate landscape. There you have it, 10 stops on our journey through California's crumbling dream. We've witnessed uninsurable fire zones, investor ghost towns, and prices so disconnected from wages they depend on stock market magic instead of economic fundamentals. The lesson is clear, the sticker price is just the beginning of potential financial pain. The California dream isn't dead, but it's definitely on life support in these markets. The combination of climate risk, insurance crisis, and speculative excess has created perfect storms that could devastate property values in ways most people haven't even considered. Is there a city we missed that's falling even faster? Is your town potentially next on this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're tired of being a pawn in this speculative game, and subscribe so you don't miss the next warning. The housing market's next chapter is being written right now, and it's not following the script most people expect.